Your logo is your mission. You are truly game changer.
So we started and called the company GameChange Energy because we want to change the game in renewables, make them really cost effective. So we started GameChange Solar in 2012. And the reason we started was because we saw that not only was solar energy good for the planet, but we saw that solar panel prices were going to go down really quickly. I don't know if you remember when you used to buy a flat panel TV, a big one. They were $10,000 or $20,000. What are they today? The big, huge thing going on globally, especially in the US, and now we're seeing India and Europe, is data center, AI. AI needs to grow. It's super critical. It needs data centers. Data centers use massive amounts of electricity.
Hello and welcome to this special conversation where we bring to you a deep dive into the evolving energy ecosystem and how repowering the planet with solar energy is enabling new kinds of businesses to be built in this space. I'm your host Gautam Srinivasan, and joining me to talk about trends, challenges, and the way ahead for the solar energy space is Andrew Worden, founder and executive chairman at GameChange Energy. Great to have you on board, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right, we've got lots to talk about and very little time. So let's quickly start things off by understanding the broad sense of what is happening in this space. How has renewable energy, and in particular utility scale solar, evolved over the last few years? What are some of the highlights? Because we see a lot of action happening in Asia, happening across the world. What are the key highlights according to you?
So there's a couple big developments that have happened over the last decade or so. We started GameChange Solar in 2012. And the reason we started was because we saw that not only was solar energy good for the planet, but we saw that solar panel prices were going to go down really quickly. I don't know if you remember when you used to buy a flat panel TV, a big one. They were $10,000 or $20,000. What are they today?
We're at $600 or
$600. So we saw that trend, and we said the same thing will happen with solar panels. And that's what's happened. That's how it's played out. At GameChange Solar, our idea was to keep reducing the cost of the other stuff in the solar field than the panels. So basically, the trackers and the structures that we make are the second biggest part of the spend, and then inverters are third. And it's been a huge success for us to see that we can help reduce the cost of these to make the entire solar plant more cost effective. So what happened is as solar energy got really cheap, people could get a lot more of it. And then a big development in the last couple of years is that energy storage has also gotten really inexpensive. And energy storage is super important because solar makes energy at a really low price, which is great. But the problem is it makes it at kind of different times. You need your lights on all the time, not just when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing. So the batteries will allow this industry and have allowed this industry to scale into a much bigger percentage of the total grid of electricity.
And I think that's going to drive the massive change that's going to come about, because people always used to wonder with solar, hey, what happens when we don't have the relevant storage and it's just in the sun? But here, if you have proper energy storage systems along with proper solar systems to harness the energy, you're fine. The link works for you. But as you mentioned, the prices are going down. It makes it more affordable. And of course, it makes it more broad-based in terms of acceptance. But then the question comes, are projects becoming more complex to build and manage? What are the key challenges there? Because as things become cheap, the scale keeps going up. And as the scale goes up, there is the issue of complexity. How do you manage that complexity?
So the good thing about solar energy is that it's a basic building block. So whether you're building one row or 10,000 rows, it's the same row you're building over and over again. In fact, if you look at the complexity and cost of different kinds of projects, on one extreme is literally the hardest in terms of over budget and over time is nuclear energy, more than anything else. And actually the easiest, and this includes about 40 different categories of kinds of projects, commercial construction, residential construction, coal plants, whatever. And the other stream is solar energy, on time and on budget. It's really amazing. But your point is well taken, because the complexity and scale is a super big issue. So if you look in certain areas, labor is becoming hard to find because these fields, to your point, are just so massive in scale, millions of solar panels, some of these. So we're seeing robotics as a big push. In fact, we're really involved in robotics to bring the robots to help assemble the solar fields. So we see that will be a growing part of the solution. Even though India, for example, has lots of workers, there's no shortage. But just in terms of completing on time, we see over time robotics are going to become more and more prevalent in the whole picture.
And we are in the maturity cycle of robotics, where a lot of the things which would have been science fiction is actually reality right now, considering the developments that have been taking in this space. Plus, the advantage that robotics brings is you can set up utility scale solar in remote regions, even if you don't have the human resource to manage it. Now, considering all these changes that come about, Andrew, when you look at the energy industry, the changes that have come about, are they pushing companies to rethink the way they operate today? Because somewhere I wonder, if the broader energy ecosystem changes, does the company, an enabler company or a servicing company, do they need to rethink their operating model itself? What's your thought on this?
Well, intelligence needs to be deployed at all different levels in the grid to keep the grid stable. So absolutely, storage needs to, as we talked about before, become a big part of the puzzle. And frankly, as much as we're renewable energy focused and we believe that that's a great way to power the planet, other energy sources will also be needed for the entire 24/7, 365 power. So you're going to need other things. You're going to need nuclear. Unfortunately, you're probably going to need some fossil as well, because you need to make energy all around the clock. Wind is actually interesting. It really complements solar because wind makes energy at night. But for all this stuff, you need a really smart grid. I mean, you don't want the lights turning off. You don't want any of that. That's really not good. So the complexity, I think, is just managing. If you think about how complex this whole thing is, you've got, when originally you just had coal plants or nuclear plants, they make energy all day long. Pretty simple challenge. But now when you put all these renewables on the grid, the more and more the intelligence is going to be critical to scaling this whole renewable industry.
And within this renewable space, what is that one big change into how renewables itself is evolving, which is making energy companies rethink how they work? Anything that you want to add?
Absolutely. So, and I think that goes back to the earlier point where it's all about the money. In the USA, we say it's all about the Benjamins, baby. Because
Show me the money.
Benjamin's on the $100 bill, picture of Benjamin Franklin, right? So, but anyway, and I think it's true everywhere in the space, all around the world, everywhere around the world. Solar is so cost effective that you're going to continue to see a reduction in the price of these power plants, which will allow continued scale up of renewables in the industry.
Absolutely. As they say, money makes the world go round. Now, considering GameChange Energy and its enabling role in this ecosystem, what would you say is its evolution story alongside all these changes that have happened in the broader energy ecosystem?
So that's a great question. So we started in 2012. We saw that the price of solar panels would go down. So we started and called the company GameChange Energy because we wanted to change the game in renewables, make them really cost effective. And we saw that the structures and then the trackers were a big cost and frankly, not well engineered, too many parts and pieces, and way too expensive. So basically my background in running a private equity firm for 25 years before that, and my background at Harvard and MIT, where I studied in engineering and some other subjects, helped me to really understand how to optimize these structures. And starting in the USA, we had a great advantage in terms of we had all the engineering resources there around us already. But replicating that model in India has been incredibly successful because we found the engineering here, the talent pool is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Manufacturing base has become really high quality, which wasn't the case a long time ago.
Absolutely.
And the combination of the ability to knock down price and the ability of the solar panels to get less expensive is this double whammy where the entire solar plant has gotten cheaper. And I get, just keep harping on this idea, but it's allowed the industry to scale. And I believe we're just at the beginning. We'll have massive continued scaling, even though recently I heard that there were a couple of days where renewable energy, specifically solar, we're running 25% of the generation in India. I heard that a couple of days happened like that, which is great. It shows you that we can get to certain times, we can probably get much higher than that, which is
great. Can improve its share in the energy mix as we go along, because that's always been the worry that, hey, is coal becoming too much of a mainstay for solar to make its impact? But now we are seeing solar share in the Indian energy mix grow substantially. And I love the fact that your logo is your mission. You are truly game changer in this space. Now, when we look at you changing the game when it comes to the company itself, because earlier you were solar focused, now you're into the broader energy ecosystem. What does it represent in the context of business today? Because you've gone from solar to bigger things, the broader energy space. What do you think is the context here for that move?
That's a really, really good point. So I look at Amazon. Jeff Bezos started Amazon. He sold books. That's it, which is great. But then he figured out, well, people buy more than books, right?
Let's make it a marketplace.
Let's put all kinds of stuff in there. So basically what happens, we started in solar fixed tilt and then solar trackers, which is great. And we became, actually, we're the leader in India now. Thank you to this country for embracing our company and accepting that, we are kind of helping, hopefully, everyone to achieve lower cost. But we then said, well, wait a second. People need other things in the solar farm. They don't just need the trackers. They need wires. They need boxes that change the electricity, keep stepping it up. They need inverters that convert electricity into the kind of power the grid needs. And then they need transformers to step it up to the much higher voltages so it can go a long distance at, without too much wire cost. So we decided to enter the energy solution business 2 years ago. We rebranded GameChange Energy. And basically now we're providing, it depends on the country, but we started a transformer factory in India, in Taloja, which is phenomenal, state-of-the-art, brand new, bottoms up, from the ground. It's a phenomenal factory. It's one of the largest transformer factories in India. And we're selling transformers in India and in the United States, and also entering Europe. So that's one thing we're providing. In the U.S. market, and we will expand this globally, including to India, we're also now providing the harnesses, the wires from the trackers and fixed tilt, and the boxes they convert electricity, called combiner boxes, and then another thing called a disconnect, which is like a safety switch in a big box. These are called EBOS, is a term for all that.
All right.
All that stuff. And then we're working on an inverter company startup, which won't be selling inverters for probably 2 to 3 years. But we'll be able to go to you, say you're a power plant owner, and say, hey, listen, you buy the panels, and GameChange Energy will give you everything else for your entire power plant, all the way to the end, including the transformer stepping up the power into the grid.
You're truly plug and play in this energy ecosystem. But as we progress in this transition, how are you going to maintain the consistency and quality? Because again, as I mentioned, too many moving parts. You have to make sure everything works perfectly. So in terms of maintaining consistency and quality, what's your game plan?
That's a really good question, because it's really challenging when you get to scale. Quality issues, when you're doing say you're putting 10 panels in someone's house and there's a quality issue, it's kind of okay. But we're doing projects now that have tens of thousands of, robots. There's a motor, there's a drive system, there's a little charging panel, there's brains, there's electronics. You have a quality issue at that scale. You're just bouncing back from that is a serious issue. So the biggest challenge we see is scaling production capacity, which we've been very good at, but also the quality control in every factory. We have a huge quality control staff who are in there monitoring constantly. The rigor and discipline is totally critical. We have to have a few parts per million of failures, not a few parts per thousand, or else we're in big trouble. So I think what differentiates the winners from the losers in this business has been quality, has been a huge part of that. Quality and design. Scaling production also is an issue, but we've been able to keep well ahead of it. We always make a production capacity twice what we're going to do, because you never know when some machines are taking a break, or this or that, or everyone wants all their stuff at once, not spread out evenly over the year. So we're constantly, every year we look at the next year, we look to make sure we double our capacity on top of what we're going to do even the next year.
Taking the zero defect framework, it reminds me of a zero defect framework. Taking that into consideration, your focus seems to be on making projects which are easier to build and predictable to run. So what insights would you share from that mission statement, from your vast experience that you have? When you're talking about projects that are easier to build and predictable to run, what are some insights you'd like to share?
So we were fortunate that we started in the U.S. market. Labor costs in the U.S. market are incredibly high, almost incomprehensibly high to everywhere else in the world. We've seen labor, for example, in Southern California at $110 an hour. That's $230,000 per year.
Wow.
For a field worker.
Whoa.
For a field worker, because there's union jobs and whatnot. So that's the most expensive state, but the others are like half to a third of that. But still, the cost of labor is incredible. So what does that mean? That means these trackers need to go together really fast. So our products were designed, tested, engineered, and deployed in the U.S. before any major market other than that. We wanted to do that so we really knew what we were doing. We get everything nailed down before we scale massively globally. So that technology has come, this U.S. technology, which is proven and tested to be fast installing, has come to India. And even though labor is very inexpensive here, people really appreciate that these go together fast and easily and quickly, because it allows them to meet their timeline, quickly. And field workers are I really respect these guys. They're out there, and ladies, they're out there working really hard. Sometimes the weather conditions are absolutely brutal, and they're helping to get things done and build this industry. Without them, none of us would be doing any of this. So, but let's make their job a little easier. Let's make things, simpler to install, because there's tons of new people coming in. It's a high turnover business because it's hard work, and you need to make this job for those people easy so that they can get up to speed quickly and be effective.
All right. It dovetails to the maturity curve, where as you build technology which helps the human resource work better, it works best for everyone involved in the ecosystem. And on that note, considering your far-sighted thinking, let's also talk about longer-term relationships. Long-term relationships seems to be a big part of your approach. So how do you maintain that as the business scales?
So that's a really, I keep telling you, your question is really good. That's a really, really good one. But yeah, so I think the biggest thing is trust. Doing business the old-fashioned way. So we own our issues. So no one's perfect. Mistakes happen. You do have sometimes little quality issues, no matter how good you are. So the question is, how do you deal with them? You're judging me by my mistakes, not by my successes, right? So we are really, really transparent with our customers. If there's anything that ever comes up, we send our people in there. We take care of it. We don't hide behind warranty letters. We don't do warranty claims. We take care of our stuff. We make sure that our customers have a great relationship. We're on them really hard, pushing them to see what can we do better? What can we do to help? When I meet a customer, I say, hey, what's important to you? I want to go into the sales pitch, say, what's important to you? What's going to help you get your job done faster? What's going to help you, Mr. Owner, make more energy by using our algorithms, for example, which can greatly increase your energy production? What else can we do for you? And they'll say, well, we're really important to us that you make more energy, or that your deliveries are on time, or the deliveries are in the proper sequence we want. India is really challenging. India, honestly, more than anywhere else. India, when you're doing projects in certain areas of India, you'll start with, let's say, 50 plots. And then a month later, we're just kidding, these 3 plots are gone. And now I have to put in those 3 plots over there. Then 2 weeks later, we sometimes have 10 to 20 changes in the project in terms of where the plots are, because they don't work out a deal with this farmer or that farmer. And it's really challenging. If you think about it, you're moving millions of parts, and all of a sudden say, well, just kidding, those ones are going to go over there. And then those ones are going to go over there. And by the way, the design is totally different. It's challenging. We're able to react to this, which is not simple. We're able to react to this because we built a phenomenal team of really great workers in India at all different levels, engineering, deliveries, all different levels. So we can react and give people a phenomenal customer service that they deserve. And that's how we keep winning repeat business. Once you get a customer, we don't let them go. We just keep growing with those customers. It's a lot easier to keep a customer happy than to not do that and go to find a new customer. It's a lot easier. It's also just good business. It's not super rocket science.
Retention is cheaper than acquisition, as they call it in the broader business. And for you, as you mentioned, it's not a sales pitch. It's a solutions conversation. And when it comes to India, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Expanding on that, because you operate across different geographies, what have you learned about building a business that works across, say, varied markets? And in that context, how do you see India's role in your growth, both as a market and as an operations base? Because as you've described, this is a market, if you survive and thrive, you can make it, you can make your solutions much, much more attractive to a lot of players across the global market. What's your thought on this?
So that's 2 big questions in there. So in terms of India, what do we do here? So we started doing solar power plants here in 2019. We got a huge order. It's the biggest tracker for actually several years. And we started building that in 2020, completed in 2021. Very, very challenging time with COVID and whatnot. But so we started making and selling our systems in India then. But the other thing we started doing was making parts in India and exporting them, primarily to the U.S. We now export it to other countries besides the U.S. But that started ramping up very quickly. And then we started looking at the engineering support and all that. So we started hiring people in India for engineer support for the rest of the world. So we have 3 legs of India employment growth. Factories making all the parts, the GameChange people out there training, and the employees managing the deliveries. And then we have the people making the parts for export. And also, I forgot one. We also have the people doing the software development, and also the IT support for outsourced, and engineer support outsourced done in India for the rest of the world.
So it's not just
So-
a manufacturing hub, it's an innovation hub for you as well.
Innovation and engineering support and lots of different facets. We've hired hundreds and hundreds of people in India, and employment is growing here very quickly.
All right. Now, I want to talk about business in a different sense. Broadly, I'm trying to understand what makes you tick, because you've spoken previously about building businesses that do good but are also strong commercially. As a leader in this space, you've been on both sides. You've been on the venture capital side, you're running a business. So how do you balance doing good with being profitable? Give our viewers some examples here.
So it's kind of a virtuous cycle. So not-for-profits are great. I really respect people that do them. It's great. But the way I saw the ability to run this business in a way that does good and also makes money is if you're making money, then you can grow the business. So a business that doesn't make money cannot grow. So we have to make a fair profit. It's not as high as we wish in terms of revenues, but we're big enough that it's good money. And we can take that and we can reinvest to keep growing, to get more solar out there and continue to reduce the cost of solar. So you do need, my belief, I call it virtuous capitalism. We're doing something good, but because it's a capitalist model, we can take the profits and we can reinvest to grow, scale, and help the industry even more.
It actually feels like we are entering that era of benign capitalism or virtuous capitalism, as you say, where every stakeholder in that ecosystem gets to see the benefit and it's not just restricted to a few. All right, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to ask you one last question. Looking at the crystal ball, looking ahead, what are some of the big opportunities that you see shaping this industry?
So we're seeing, again, reduction of solar panels. That's going to continue. I think raw material prices fluctuate wildly, but over time they continue to go down. You're going to have energy storage, like we talked about, making much deeper penetration of renewables possible. And the big, huge thing going on globally, especially in the US, and now we're seeing India and Europe, is data center, AI. AI needs to grow. It's super critical. It needs data centers. Data centers use massive amounts of electricity. The only way to get enough energy online quick enough is solar and storage, plus other stuff. But nuclear is way out there, very expensive, etc. Fossil fuels as well have their issues. So data center driven and EV electrification and other kinds of electrification are going to continue and accelerate. And we need solar and storage in there to meet this need.
Absolutely. As new businesses come about, new types of energy businesses are required to service them. And that's our cue to wrap up this talk around the evolution and revolution that is shaping the solar energy industry, with an eye on the enabling role played by companies like GameChange Energy. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us for this talk. Pleasure to speak with you. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Till next time, this is your host Gautam Srinivasan signing off. Have a great day.